All right, let's just jump right in. This is one of those ideas that sounds, well, completely backward, right? The notion that in the brutal game of survival, the best way to prove your strength is to deliberately weigh yourself down with a weakness. But as we're about to find out, this totally counterintuitive logic is actually one of the most powerful forces in all of evolution.
So to really wrap our heads around this, we've got to start with a puzzle. And it's a puzzle that comes from one of the most beautiful and honestly one of the most confusing sights in the entire animal kingdom.
I mean, come on, just look at that thing, the peacock's tail. It's stunning, it's hypnotic, and if you think about it from a practical survival point of view, it makes zero sense. Even Darwin, the guy who came up with all this, was totally baffled by it. He actually wrote once that the sight of a peacock's feather makes me sick. So the big question is, why? Why would evolution, a process that's all about being efficient, produce something like this?
And believe me, the problems are very, very real. This tail isn't just some pretty accessory. It's a serious liability. It's heavy, it's cumbersome, it slows the poor bird down when a predator is chasing it. It takes a ton of energy and food just to grow and carry around. And if that wasn't bad enough, it's basically a giant shimmering neon sign that screams, "Hey predators, free lunch over here." So how on earth could this possibly be a winning strategy?
Okay, so to figure out the peacock's secret, we actually need to take a step back and look at a much bigger, more fundamental problem. It's a problem every single living thing has to deal with. How do you trust anyone?
No, really, think about it for a second. In a world where everyone's competing for food, for mates, for territory, there's a massive incentive to lie, to bluff, to make yourself look stronger or healthier than you really are. If a weak little animal could just puff out its chest and trick everyone into thinking it was tough, it would, right? So if faking it is such a good strategy, how can you ever believe what you're seeing?
Well, this is where it all falls apart. Because if everyone can fake the signals, then the signals themselves become totally meaningless. The calls, the bright colors, the displays, none of it means anything anymore. It's kind of like if everyone could print their own money. Pretty soon, nobody would trust it, and the whole system would just collapse.
But, and this is where things get really cool, an Israeli biologist named Amotz Zahavi came up with this brilliant, just incredibly elegant solution to this whole problem of trust. He called it the handicap principle. And here's the big idea, the absolute core of it. The only way to guarantee a signal is honest, is if it's costly. The signal has to be so expensive, so difficult to produce, that a weaker individual just can't afford to fake it. The very thing that makes the signal a burden is exactly what makes it trustworthy.
So let's break that down. You've got cheap signals on one hand. Think of a simple bird call. Any bird can do it, so it's easy to fake, which means it's unreliable. You'd probably ignore it. But then you have costly signals. These are hard to fake because they take real energy, real resources. And because they're hard to fake, they're honest and reliable. You can actually trust them.
If there's one phrase you take away from this, let it be this one. The cost is the proof. The peacock isn't just chirping, "Hey, I'm strong," it's proving it. It's basically shouting, "Look at me, I am so incredibly healthy and so good at finding food that I can afford to dump all these resources into this ridiculously over-the-top tail and still survive."
Okay, so let's walk through the logic here step by step. First, an animal develops some kind of really costly trait. That's the handicap. Step 2, only the absolute top-tier individuals, the strongest and healthiest, can actually afford to pay that survival cost. That makes the trait, step 3, an unfakeable, totally honest signal of quality. And finally, step 4, other animals, like a potential mate, learn to trust that signal because they know how ridiculously expensive it is to have.
And this idea is so powerful because it's not just about peacocks trying to impress peahens. We see this same logic playing out in some really fascinating ways all over the place, even between a predator and its prey.
All right, let's go to the savannah for a minute. Picture this, a cheetah, the fastest thing on 4 legs, has its eyes locked on a herd of gazelles. Things are about to get real.
But then, something really weird happens. Instead of just bolting, one of the gazelles starts jumping straight up into the air. All 4 feet off the ground, legs stiff, like it's on a pogo stick. It's a behavior called stotting. Now, why in the world would you waste precious time and energy doing that when a cheetah is literally right there?
It's sending a message. A very clear, very honest, and very costly message. By studying, that gazelle is showing off. It's broadcasting to the cheetah, "Hey,
Look how fit I am. I've got so much energy to burn, I can waste it on these silly jumps. Chasing me would be a total waste of your time and energy because you are not going to catch me. And you know what? A lot of the time, the cheetah gets the message loud and clear and just moves on to find an easier meal.
So, you might be thinking, okay, cool story about gazelles, but this isn't just some weird animal trivia. The core logic of the handicap principle, well, it's an incredibly powerful way to understand a whole lot of what we humans do too.
All right, let's wrap this up with the big takeaways. First, for any signal to be trustworthy, it has to be costly. Second, that very cost acts as the guarantee of honesty. Third, what looks like a handicap on the surface is actually a giant advertisement for superior quality. And finally, this logic is everywhere, from mating rituals and predator-prey dynamics all the way to social status.
The thing is, once you get this idea in your head, you'll start seeing it absolutely everywhere. It's often unconscious, but it's there. It's in the luxury brands people buy, the universities they attend, the art they create. So much of our own behavior is built on this foundation of sending costly, and therefore honest, signals.
And that really leaves us with a fascinating question to chew on. Think about our world, the human world. What are our peacock tails? What's our version of gazelle studding? What are the costly signals we use every day to honestly show our status, our intelligence, our commitments? The answers, I think, tell us a whole lot about what we, as a culture, really value.